Hey guys, and welcome to Mass Effect Talks. Before I get the topic started, I wanted to make a little announcement. I finally realized how to make a Facebook page, and I'm still kind of iffy about it. I'm still not too sure if I did it right, but I finally have a Facebook page. So if you want to go check that out, go for it. I also have a Twitter for those of you that don't know. I'll put both of those links in the description. So go check those out, because I will be updating those regularly with videos and just, questions that I might have with you guys, and you guys could talk to me through there if you want, but yeah. So on with Mass Effect Talks. Today's episode I'm pretty excited about. I've actually really loved to do the episodes of Mass Effect Talks lately when it comes to the races of Mass Effect, because they really are, all of them, once you learn more about them, they're so awesome. And it's just so awesome that BioWare put so much time into these races. I mean, some of the stuff isn't even mentioned in the games, but it's still there, like it still exists. So that's just awesome. I really enjoy games that do that, where they have like backgrounds and it's not just like, well, it's not in the game, so we don't have to mention it. I think that's so cool. So today's race, I was going to be talking about the Solarians, but I'm actually going to leave the Solarians for next week, just because it makes sense to talk about the Krogan this week, because I talked about the Turians last week, and it just makes sense to talk about Turians, Krogan, and then Solarian. So in Mass Effect 2, we were finally able to go on the home world of the Krogan, Tuchanka. It really was what I expected, especially with how the Krogan are. The environment in Tuchanka is harsh for a lot of reasons. The weather, for another reason that I'm going to go into later. But just naturally in Tuchanka, the weather sucks. There's scarce resources. There's a lot of predators. So it's just a really dangerous place. One thing that is almost unbelievable is that the Krogan are actually a prey race. They're not predators. As hostile and violent as they are, they're not predators. They're prey. And just by knowing how harsh the environment is in Tuchanka, it really gives you like an appreciation for the race, for the Krogan, because they've not only survived on this planet, but they've even thrived. I mean, before the Genophage, their population was booming. The thing that I was going to tell, the thing that I mentioned earlier, the why Tuchanka is also dangerous. It doesn't happen naturally. Is what came after the Krogan nuclear age. And what that is it's kind of like it was a civil war that happened among the clans, the Krogan clans. This happened like 4,000 years ago, so it was a long time ago. This was before the Rachni Wars, by the way. So this is how long it was. There was this civil war on Tuchanka because the clans, I mean, naturally the Krogan are very violent, and they kind of have to be. They've evolved to be like this because they've had to survive such intense situations and such intense environments. So they've had to grow this like hard skin and pretty much fend for themselves. So that's why they're so violent and almost callous in a way. The civil wars started because clans were trying to claim certain territories. And the Krogan, by nature, is very territorial. So for a Krogan to want to take over a territory that is already claimed, or a clan also wants it, there's going to be shed of blood there, because they're very territorial. And that's what happened. The worst part is, since the Krogan were thriving, as they advanced as a community, their technology advanced too. I mean, more like towards weaponry. So they started to create weapons of mass destruction. And they were using these weapons of mass destruction against themselves in a little area. So all of this bombardment that happened, it made Tuchanka a radioactive wasteland. they already had it bad on Tuchanka, but imagine having to live. I mean, the resources were already scarce, but now they had to live on a planet that was not only radioactive, but even more scarce than it was. So the clans were limited down to just a few. And then the Solarians came 2,000 years later. The Solarians came. This is where the Rachni Wars comes into play. During this time, in the council, in the Citadel, there was only the Asari and the Solarians. The Turians weren't a part of the council yet. The reason why the Solarians went to Tuchanka and found the Krogans was because of the Rachni Wars. They basically needed help. They were in war with the Rachni, and they were losing like bad. So they were like, we need some help. So they went to the Krogan because they were like, these guys are brutes. These are probably the only guys that could take down the Rachni. Because the thing about the Rachni, why the Rachni Wars were so brutal, so hard on the council, on the council races during this war, was because the Rachni queens, the ones that controlled all the Rachni, lived on planets that were impossible for a Solarian or for an Asari to even enter and survive. They were just very, very harsh planets. So they couldn't even go in there. So they couldn't take down the queens. And the Rachni just came coming and coming and coming. And they were very, very strong. So before they were completely obliterated, the Solarians were like, let's go check these Krogans out. And when they found out the situation that the Krogan were in during this time, during the nuclear age, they were pretty much in need at that time. So the Solarians were like, we'll help you guys out if you help us out. The Solarians basically took them off to Tuchanka and had them inhabit other planets that were fine, that didn't have any harsh environments. So the Krogan were like, hells yeah, that was worth it. I mean, they were born to fight anyways. That's their nature. So the Solarians were like, you guys have to help us out with the Rachni. We can't do this. You guys have to try to take them out, and the queens, we can't get into their planets. So the Krogans were like, psh, piece of cake, don't worry about it. They go, they take down a bunch of Rachni, and since they're so used to being in harsh environments, they were able to enter these planets, the Rachni planets. They were able to survive in these planets and take down the queens. So that's how the Rachni Wars came to an end, because the Krogans were the only ones that could go into the Rachni homeworlds and take down the queens. The ironic thing is what happened after the Rachni Wars. So the Krogan were recruited by the council to help them out with the Rachni because they were just getting out of hand. But then after the Rachni Wars, after the Krogans did what the council wanted them to, the council was like, oh, thank you. Now you guys could take over the Rachni planets. They're yours. And the Krogans were like, cool. So they took over the planets, the Rachni planets. But the Krogan got a little greedy. Their population was booming again, especially since they left Tuchanka. When the Solarians were like, take these planets that are better fitted for you guys. They're not freaking radioactive and all that. The Krogans started to reproduce again, like fast, and they didn't have these harsh environments anymore where they were just thriving more than they were. So the Krogans started to grow and grow, and they were like, let's take more planets. They started to go around and they started to try to inhabit different planets that were already taken by council races. When they tried to take the planet, it's called Lucia, one of the planets of the Asari. They tried to take that, and the Asari was like, oh, hells no. Krogan weren't going to back down. They were like, what? We helped you guys. You guys can't say no to us. And they got really mad. There was this whole clash between them. And the Krogan were like, we're going to force you guys out. Just watch us. And then he stormed out and started crying. The Krogan rebellion started. And this was right after the Rachni Wars. So it was one war to the next. So the Krogans started to basically take over the galaxy because there was just too many of them. They were way too strong and they just couldn't control them. So they started to take all these planets, and the council was like, oh my god, what are we gonna do? The council even got, they used the Solarian Special Tasks Group. They used the Sari Huntresses. They used the Spectres. They just tried to do everything they could, but the Krogan kept on coming. That's when the council was like, again, first they went to the Krogan for the Rachni, and now they went to the Turians for the Krogan. So they went to the Turians and they were like, we need your help. The battle between the Turians and the Krogan was brutal. Because these two guys, these two races, the Krogan are freaking brutes. They're violent and they rely on strength. And the Turians are a militaristic they're a militaristic race, and they don't give up. And they're more disciplined though, but they're just as dangerous. So between these two, they just butchered each other. The Krogan even used asteroids as weapons, and they bombarded the Turian planets. So much that 3 Turian planets were uninhabitable. You couldn't even live on it anymore because of how bad they bombarded them. And the Turians were like, they just came down on the Krogan hard, and that was the genophage created by the Solarians. Now, the Solarians weren't going to use the genophage against the Krogan, like I said in my other Mass Effect talks. But the Turians were like, we got to use it. You guys aren't going to use it, but we are. Give me that. Out of 1,000 births, only 1 would survive. So it really dropped the Krogan numbers drastically, especially because of how fast they were reproducing. So the Krogan had no other choice but to give in. They gave up because they were like, we can't do this anymore. That didn't end the feud between them though. The Krogan are really they hold grudges that and still in Mass Effect you could see how much the Krogan they hold what happened really, like, I mean, they're suffering. They're still suffering from the genophage. It's incurable so far, but it's probably, you're probably going to be able to cure it in Mass Effect 3. Some of the Krogan warlords went rogue. They were like, screw that, I'm not going to surrender. So they attacked. They kept on attacking until the Turians just wiped them out. And the warlords that survived, that were left, they disappeared. They went under the radar and have become pirates, mercenaries, that type of thing. One of the warlords that we know about is the warlord Okir from Mass Effect 2. He created Grunt, if you don't remember.